Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Last week's conversation was a blast. I'm so excited to have you with me for this next segment. Let's get back to the show. Tell me about your best cultivation story, Tim.
We had a donor who was our largest giver for 12 years in a row. Single largest, but gave the same gift every year for 12 years in a row. We wrote the ask every year in April. We made many visits. We did the whole playbook every year, same amount. We answered questions. We gave strategy and all those kind of things. When I came into the role, I started working with one of my colleagues who is an expert in this space. Frankly, he could be a CDO anywhere. Incredible guy named Paul Crosby. And Paul had some ideas on how to continue to develop not only him, but the people around him as well. And the moment that we cultivated, so for me, I came in blind. I had no relationship with this person. They'd been giving for all these years. We went in and realized, okay, there's a passion area we have not yet tapped into here, which has to do with, and he was willing to tell me for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because I was young or whatever, where he gives and why.
Oh,
and
that's helpful.
His passion areas. And so I was like, okay.
So you didn't ask?
I didn't have to ask that first time.
Okay.
He was kind of like coaching a little bit. In some ways, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But the real thing that took it over the hump is when we launched into a capital campaign as an organization.
Yeah.
And it was then that the dream and the need got way bigger right away.
Yeah.
Year over year. And so he went 4X on the gift the first year. And then he went 5X on the gift the next year.
Wow.
And part of that was, yes, we followed up with them. Yeah. But it was honestly, my predecessor stayed in that relationship so faithfully for such a long amount of time. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that if we launched into this campaign, my predecessor could have seen the same fruit. But it was, again, staying in it long enough that then we understood, okay, this passion area hasn't been explored. And what I realized is he loves his community. He's done revolutionary things in his community, in his whole town. And the dream we had in our capital campaign was very similar to what he had done already. And now he felt like, now I can scale this globally. And what I can feel in my community, I can now make impact globally. And so we were able to make that connect for him and then cultivate that thing for the future. So that's really encouraging.
That's great. Can I ask just a couple follow-up questions? As I think you know, a lot of people listening to this show, they don't necessarily have all the experience. They're kind of new to fundraising, that sort of thing. Two things. One, this fellow that was giving, when you say he gave the same amount, what was he giving annually? Was this a $200 gift, a $2,000?
$1 million.
He would give you $1 million every single year. Okay.
Every year. Yep.
All right. Well, I can see why you'd pay attention to that. Now, the lady that you referenced earlier in your previous story, you said she wasn't typical of what you would expect, or when you saw her, you didn't think, oh, this is somebody that would want to support us. Why was that?
Honestly, I think part of it was she looked we were talking about more progressive kind of things, next gen things. I showed up, with tattoos and the whole thing. We're kind of like, we were the edgy young guys at the time. Right. And so now it's like more accepted, but at the time it was felt edgier. She felt like a very typical church lady, honestly, and very conservative, kind of religious lady, Midwestern, and it just didn't. And again, and what I've learned over the years, especially for the newer people, not all people with wealth look like they have wealth.
That's right.
I mean, a lot of people are very frugal. They don't want to come across looking, more wealthy than they are. They don't want to stand out. And so she looked very, like my mom or somebody, like just a nice lady, but not somebody that felt like she would be really interested in the kind of things that we were talking about, and not somebody that seemed like she had mega capacity. By the way, same thing is true about that mega donor that I just talked about.
Yeah.
You would never know. Man, when you sat down, you would never know.
Yeah.
You just would never know. So
That's such an important thing for people to understand. Because, I mean, yeah, there are times when someone sits down and you might be able to tell fairly quickly just from the way they carry themselves, the way they present themselves, that this person seems like they're from some money. But at the same time, there's just so many people that hide it for all the
yep.
reasons. So, okay, no, that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, tell me your best solicitation story, and it doesn't have to be the biggest, but just one that's meaningful to you for any reason.
Yeah. I have learned in this role, the reason I was most hesitant, and I think a lot of new fundraisers feel this way, is because I was really nervous about making an ask.
Hmm.
I just was nervous about, am I going to have the courage to do that? Is this going to be awkward? I don't want to ask people for money. It's weird, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Now I love it because I'm never asking for me. Right? I'm asking
Yeah.
for something that is beyond me and bigger than me, that you're not a sales guy getting a bonus on the gift, that kind of thing. And so it's become fun. One of the areas that has become really fun for me is other leaders of organizations, foundations, or churches, like lead pastors of churches, to make more bold asks. And the thing that came to mind when you asked this question was asking a couple of pastors to compete a little bit against one another and to create some challenge match kind of opportunities for others to join them.
Mm.
They were churches that were significant, but not, the largest churches ever, but the significant, strong churches. One of them is about 2,000 people. One of them is about 4,000 people. So strong churches, but not churches of 30,000, but, larger churches. But to ask those guys and say, hey, I'd love for you to go to your church and stretch. We have this goal, to do something in Africa. We have this goal to send all of these new workers into Asia. You guys gave as a church $200,000 last year. I'd love for you to stretch that to 250 or 300. Do you think you could do that? Could you challenge other churches who have not leaned in at all? Because this is really in our network. A lot of the ways we do this is that people give through their churches, right? So
Yeah.
could you challenge some other pastors who have not really leaned into the global mission kind of thing? And they really took it seriously. And they also got so excited about it that they started competing a little bit with each other, kind of making bets with each other. Like, hey, if we raise more money, I'll buy you guys, your whole staff steaks or whatever. And so those asks to those guys were catalytic moments. And so for me, I think the domino effect of getting people involved and then even using their own passion to see, how does this impact others in their sphere? How can they encourage others to step up? That can happen in the donor world. We do matching gifts all the time for all of our campaigns. That has grown a lot. We've got a $500,000 match right now out there for a spring campaign. And a lot of donors love doing that. I love making those asks for the matches, whether they're for the pastor or the donor, because it makes it feel like their gift, and it's true that their gift gets multiplied and they get to be a catalyst and join with us on our team. And so I think when I first started doing that with those guys is the story that came to mind.
Tell me a little bit, and this may be, if this is too touchy of a question, you can tell me. But I'm curious, how do you balance? Because obviously you're soliciting for the denomination that all the churches that you're in. How do you get around it feeling like competition with the local pastors for donors' monies?
Oh, yeah. That's a huge question. And that's something that I deal with all the time, every day almost. Part of this is, again, about relationship and trust. Part of what we're saying is you as pastors need to care about your local communities, but you also, in our denomination, if you're a part of our denomination, you care about the world. You care
Mhm.
about needs in the world. That's part of the
Yeah.
reason you join our denomination. That's why missionaries in our name. 2 years ago, we raised $2 million for the crisis in Ukraine. People are just
Mm.
very generous and passionate. What I say to those pastors is, you cannot get that job done on your own or as in one local church, as one local pastor. But together we can do that. So I don't want to ask
Mm.
your people to take away anything. This isn't above and beyond thing, but could you even strategize annually whether that's your budget or your plan, to see that part of your energy and your effort is actually going to the thing that we do together, so that they're not in competition, they're in collaboration with one
Hmm.
another. We use, without getting too theological here, but I do have a couple degrees, one of our key Bible verses here, Jesus says, you'll be my witnesses in the city you live in, and then the region, and then to people who aren't like you, and then all the ends of the earth. And what I tell these guys is, you can do it your own town. It's
Yeah.
hard to do ends of the earth. Let's do that together. And
Yeah.
so, but again, that only happens through a lot of trust. So with these pastors, I consider them key stakeholders, and I actually rep a lot of those pastors. They're on my list. So
Hmm.
I treat a lot of those people like I would major donors. My major donor list and my role is relatively small compared to most CDOs because I have a large team. I do rep a number of folks, but a lot of those large influencers I rep. And my touch points and stuff with them are very similar to like the moves management that would be with major donors.
Yeah. I gotcha. That's very helpful. I appreciate you going into that a little bit. Now, with all these great gifts that you're closing, I'm sure that you're doing a great job of reporting on impact and saying thank you and all that. Do you have a really meaning stewardship story that you could share with us?
Yeah, I'm going to share. I'm going to cheat and share two really quickly.
That's fine.
One
Two's
was
great.
a lady who passed away 2 years ago, and she was a newer donor to us in her 70s. She was, and I'm gonna. She's passed away now. I'm not going to use her last name, but her nickname was Sure Thing Sally because she was a oil well driller in
Oh,
Texas.
wow.
And her name was Sure Thing because wherever she drilled, it's like she hit, right? And so when she realized that she was able to live for more than herself, and it was one of our first matching gift campaigns, and she realized we sent the most workers that year, that we had sent in 10 or 15 years, that her gift directly led to these workers being sent to very difficult places around the world. She was overwhelmed when we announced that we hit the match. We did this live stream kind of thing, but we had her called in to a phone. And I had never spoken with her personally. She was rep by a major gift officer. And to see the emotion on her face and to see her going, like, she had had all the success the world can offer. I mean, she was obviously a successful person, a wealthy person. She didn't need anything else. The fulfillment that she had from realizing that what she did was catalytic and it went way beyond even what she could see, and it would last forever, because part of what she was saying was these dollars are going to be sent to people who are going to go have impact for decades in places that I'll never visit, that
Yeah.
I'll never know about, and it'll go on and on and on. So that was the first one. When she passed away, it was a really kind of a emotional day for us, not because we were like, oh no, it was like, wow, she meant a lot to us because of the journey and the relationship we had. The second was more recent, much smaller gift. We started a new initiative that was kind of a side project that was a fun one. And it got to the point where it looked like it wasn't going to succeed. And
Hmm.
we were going, oh man, we tried it. It's not happening. And we only needed $15,000 to keep the thing really going and to give it a shot. And I sat down with a donor couple who had never given to something like this. And I just said, hey, here's the dream. Here's what we're thinking about. Any interest in this? And they said, we'll give to this at least once, but we really want to know what is the plan of sustainability. And I try to paint a picture. I try to do that. And because of that gift, it not only survived, it went kind of viral in some ways.
Hmm.
Leading Magazine last year picked up the initiative and did a whole story on it. And it's related to music. And we've got a couple albums coming out right now, and record labels have approached us and all that stuff. And when I went back to them, I said, hey, I was just at this gathering. 500 people showed up at this gathering and all of this excitement around it. It was your gift that made that happen. It didn't, and you could tell that they were going, wow, this does feel like it's become now kind of more than an idea, but like a movement kind of
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
And we had something to do with that. And it was
Hmm.
that gift.
Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Fundraising can be hard work. and it can be hard to mentally get into the place you need to be in order to see new opportunities. Everyone struggles with it. We are like the fish in the fishbowl who just can't see the water they're swimming in. That's when having outside expertise comes in handy. For 25 years, I've been helping nonprofits analyze their challenges, discover new ways forward, and develop clear plans that lead to greater fundraising revenues. Now I am available to help your organization develop the abundant vision it needs to inspire new levels of philanthropy at your nonprofit as well. Check out abundantvision.net to start your journey toward greater fundraising success today. Now, back to the show.
That not only saved it, but propelled it forward. You could tell it was very meaningful. And they did say, thanks for acknowledging the fact that we saved the deal because we knew we were doing that, but we didn't know if it would survive. And the fact that it survived and now is flourishing is encouraging to them.
Tim, the thing that I love about both of those stories is they're very different approaches. I'm sure that initial story where you've got a live web event and a person calling in, probably a lot of production, a lot of work goes into that, probably a lot of person power there. But that second one, it's just you providing good follow-up and saying thank you and saying, see, look at this thing you did. But I'll bet both of the donors felt equally good. And there's so many small shops out there that think, well, we can't really do the type of stewardship that the big guys can, but really just personal follow-up like that is just fantastic.
A relationship, and then, you can make another ask, but you're right. It's all relationship, and and you can do that on a small scale for a $200 gift all the way up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, last question, and I love ending on this one because we get some great stories when I ask this question. Tell me about the most awkward moment you've had with a donor, and how did it resolve?
I was trying to think about this because there's a number of stories too that feel awkward just because you misread the situation or whatever. The one that has really come to mind is that we had some donors get really excited about something, and they went a little rogue in organizing their own sort of donor event that they tried to lead, and they stepped on a bunch of toes in the process. I think they were used to they're successful people. They're used to sort of just being able to tell people what to do. They didn't realize, both from the larger organization, but then also they went directly to some churches and other organizations asking for names and addresses of individuals, but they're a significant donor for us. So the awkwardness is I didn't want to crush them.
Yeah.
I had to rebuild all of those kind of awkward conversations with the people that they were, and we had to still have the event that was like, okay, let's have the event. I'll try to run the event, but empower them, knowing that there's a bunch of people kind of upset. And you're always doing a bit of a dance with, with donors. You are, because you're not playing a game and you're not just giving them anything they want, but you are also cultivating a relationship, and you have to be careful. And so that one was tough for me, but we navigated it and the outcome was fine. I mean, at the end of the day, relationship was preserved. But I hadn't had somebody go rogue on me and kind of upend the plan. When you have your own sort of fundraising plan and then they do their own thing, it's a little challenging, but it worked out in the end. It was fine.
Oh, that's great. No, that's, when you get, I'm glad you brought that one up too, where they're going to other organizations asking for lists. That sort of thing, especially in the higher ed realm, can happen very easily, even in the healthcare realm, where people are just reaching out inappropriately to the wrong people at the wrong time. And you're like, but you want to preserve the relationship.
They wanted to do it because they believe in it. And so I didn't want to crush them or discourage them, because I actually appreciated the fact that they were self-motivated, but they weren't doing it in the right direction. So is what it is.
Well, Tim, this has been great. You've shared with us so much information. I'm so grateful to have had you on. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thanks so much, Tom. I appreciate being with you.
Great. Well, I look forward to talking with you again in the future, but keep up the great work. I look forward to hearing more about what your organization's accomplishing.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate
Take care. I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together towards major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.